Welcome, traveller of the cosmos, to this sanctuary of starlight and silence. Before we begin our journey into the wondrous rhythms of the natural world, I invite you to find a place of absolute comfort. Allow your body to sink deeply into the surface beneath you, feeling the gentle pull of gravity not as a weight, but as a warm, grounding embrace. The day has finished its rotation. The demands of the waking world have evaporated like mist in the morning sun. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be, and no problem you need to solve. There is only this moment, suspended in the velvet cradle of the night. Close your eyes and visualize a soft indigo light washing over you, starting from the crown of your head and flowing slowly down to the tips of your toes. As this light travels, it unties the knots in your muscles, smoothing your brow, unclenching your jaw, and softening the space behind your eyes. Your breath creates a rhythm, a slow oceanic tide that moves in and out, effortless and deep. You're safe here, you're protected, you're drifting in a vessel of pure tranquility, floating down a river of dreams that leads to the library of the universe. Here, knowledge is not a burden, but a lullaby. We are about to drift through the grand atmospheric tapestry of weather, observing the unseen forces that shape our skies. Let your mind become as vast and open as the horizon itself, ready to receive these soothing truths as we float downstream. Imagine yourself standing in a vast open field, under a sky that has turned a deep bruised purple, signalling the approach of a summer storm. The air is still and heavy with anticipation, and the ground beneath your feet is dry, parched from days of golden heat. As the first heavy, cool drop of rain falls from the heavens and strikes the dusty soil, a distinct, earthy perfume is instantly released, enveloping you in a scent that feels ancient and primal. This aroma, known as petrichor, is not merely the smell of water, but a complex chemical ballet performed by the earth itself. It is the breath of the soil. When the land is dry, plants release oils that are absorbed by the clay and rocks, waiting for this precise moment of release. As the rain falls, tiny bubbles inside the raindrops trap these oils, and another compound called geosmin, a byproduct of the bacteria sleeping in the dirt. Like microscopic champagne bubbles, they burst upward, launching aerosols into the wind, carrying that rich, musky fragrance to your nose. It is a scent that signals life and renewal, a chemical message that has guided ancestors and animals for millennia toward fresh water. Visualize this scent as a visible mist, a golden aura rising from the ground to meet the falling silver rain, creating a sensory harmony that tells your deepest instincts that the earth is drinking and all is well. As your gaze lifts from the fragrant earth to the source of the rain, you find yourself floating upward, weightless, ascending into the realm of the clouds. Consider the impossible lightness of what you see. While they appear to be nothing more than wisps of cotton or majestic castles built of white smoke, a single, fluffy cumulus cloud, the kind that drifts lazily on a blue summer afternoon, can weigh over 1 million pounds. It is a staggering paradox of nature that something so monumentally heavy can float with such effortless grace. Picture yourself drifting alongside these white giants, running your fingers through their edges. They're composed of water droplets so infinitesimally small that gravity cannot claim them. They're held aloft by the gentle, invisible hands of rising warm air, suspended in a delicate balance between the earth and the void of space. To look at a cloud is to look at a hovering ocean, a reservoir of life that defies the heavy laws of the ground. They are the visible breath of the planet, shifting shapes in a silent, slow-motion dance, reminding you that even the heaviest burdens can be lifted and made to float if the atmosphere is right. But how did this ocean climb into the sky? Let your mind drift to the surface of a vast sapphire sea, glittering under the sun. You're witnessing the silent, invisible engine of the world, evaporation. Every second, the sun's energy is gently coaxing water molecules to break their bonds and rise. It is a transformation from liquid to spirit, a liberation of matter. Imagine the surface of the water not as a barrier, but as a gateway. Molecules of water, energized by the warmth, vibrate until they leap free, becoming lighter than air. They rise invisibly, ghosts of the ocean ascending to the heavens. This process is happening everywhere, from the vast Atlantic to the morning dew on a single blade of grass. It is the planet's way of breathing, a constant, silent exhalation that purifies the water, leaving behind salt and impurities, sending only the cleanest essence upward to form the clouds. Visualize this rising mist as a shimmering, transparent veil lifting from the world, a slow, upward waterfall that cleanses the spirit and feeds the sky, a cycle of eternal return that requires no effort, only the warmth of the light. As we drift from the warm oceans to the frozen peaks of the world, the atmosphere changes. The air becomes crisp and sharp, and the moisture that rose so gently now crystallizes into something exquisitely intricate. Picture a world wrapped in a blanket of fresh snow. As you walk through this white landscape, you notice a profound, almost supernatural silence. The world has been muted. This quietude is not just in your mind, it is a physical property of the snow itself. Freshly fallen snow is composed mostly of trapped air, caught within the delicate lattice-like structures of millions of ice crystals. These pockets of air act as a natural acoustic foam, absorbing sound waves rather than reflecting them. The sharp crack of a branch or the rumble of a distant engine is swallowed by the snow, dampened into a soft whisper. It is nature's way of turning down the volume of the world, inviting a time of introspection and peace. Visualize the snow falling around you, each flake a unique geometric masterpiece, piling up to create a soft, white insulation that protects the earth and quiets the noise, allowing the planet to sleep in a hushed, holy silence. From this cold tranquility, the atmosphere begins to charge with a vibrant electric energy. High above, in the turbulent heart of a storm cloud, ice crystals and water droplets collide, building a static charge until the sky can no longer hold it. We often fear the crack of lightning, but let us look at it now with wonder. You are seeing a vein of pure plasma, the fourth state of matter tearing through the sky. For a split second, the air around this bolt is heated to temperatures 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. This channel of light is so intense that it glows with a blue-white brilliance, a momentary connection between the heavens and the earth. But beyond the heat, there is a clearing effect. This immense discharge of energy produces nitrogen oxides, which rain down to fertilize the soil, making the plants greener and more vibrant. Visualize the lightning not as a weapon, but as a cosmic needle stitching the sky to the ground, injecting the earth with vitality and energy, illuminating the dark canvas of the night with a display of raw, magnificent power that passes as quickly as a thought. As the storm passes and the clouds begin to break apart, a single beam of sunlight pierces the gloom, striking the lingering raindrops still falling in the distance. Here, magic happens. The white light of the sun enters the spherical droplet and is bent or refracted, slowing down as it moves through the water. It reflects off the back of the droplet and bends again as it exits, fanning out into its constituent colours. You're witnessing the dissection of light itself. A rainbow is not an object located at a specific distance. It is an optical illusion, a private relationship between the sun, the rain, and your own eyes. If you were to move, the rainbow would move with you, forever remaining on the horizon of your perception. Picture the colours arcing across the sky: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. It is a bridge made of light and water, a fleeting promise that beauty often follows turbulence. Visualize yourself sliding down this arch of pure colour, feeling the cool mist and the warm light simultaneously, suspended in a phenomenon that exists only as long as you're there to witness it. The clouds that held the rain and the rainbow now begin to drift faster, pushed by invisible hands. This is the wind, the great equalizer of the atmosphere. Wind is simply the air's way of seeking balance. It flows from areas of high pressure, where the air is heavy and dense, to areas of low pressure, where the air is light and rising. It is nature's attempt to smooth out the differences, to fill the voids. Imagine the wind as a river of air, flowing around mountains, through valleys and across oceans. It is driven by the rotation of the earth, curving in great spirals known as the Coriolis effect. Close your eyes and feel a gentle breeze brushing against your cheek. That air may have travelled thousands of miles, carrying the scent of pine forests, the salt of the sea, or the warmth of a desert. It is the breath of the world in motion, a constant circulation that distributes heat and moisture, ensuring that life can thrive in every corner of the globe. Let yourself be carried by this gentle current, floating weightless and free, guided by the unseen currents that wrap the planet in a swirling embrace. As the wind settles and the night deepens, the temperature begins to drop, approaching a specific magical threshold known as the dew point. The air, cooling in the absence of the sun, can no longer hold on to all its moisture. It gently deposits this excess water onto the cooling surfaces of the world. Picture a meadow in the pre-dawn light. Every blade of grass, every spider web and every petal is adorned with tiny, perfect spheres of water. These are not rain. They are the result of the earth exhaling its warmth. Dew acts as a source of hydration for many small creatures and plants in arid environments, a silent gift of water appearing from thin air. Visualize the crystalline clarity of a single dewdrop. In its curved surface, the entire world is reflected upside down. The sky, the trees, the horizon, contained within a jewel of water that will vanish with the first touch of the sun. It is a reminder of the delicate, ephemeral beauty of the morning, a fleeting decoration placed upon the world while it sleeps. Sometimes this condensation happens not on the grass but in the air itself, right near the ground. We drift now into a world of soft focus, entering a bank of fog. Fog is essentially a cloud that has decided to visit the earth. It wraps the landscape in a soft grey embrace, blurring the sharp edges of reality. When you walk through fog, you're walking through millions of tiny water droplets suspended in the air, scattering the light and reducing the world to your immediate surroundings. There is a comfort in this isolation. The horizon disappears, the distance fades, and you're left in a cozy, intimate bubble of existence. Sounds are dampened, colours are muted to pastel washes, and the world feels dreamlike and slow. Imagine the feeling of the cool, damp air on your skin, a refreshing touch that feels like walking through a living, breathing mystery. The fog teaches us to let go of the need to see everything clearly, inviting us to rest in the unknown, safe within the soft, obscuring walls of the mist. Finally, the source of all these wonders begins to crest the horizon. The fog burns away, revealing the golden light of the sun. But consider the journey this light has taken to touch your face. The warmth you feel on your skin began its voyage nearly 93 million miles away. It has travelled through the cold, dark vacuum of space for 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach you. You're not experiencing the sun as it is now, but as it was 8 minutes ago. This light is carried by photons, tiny packets of energy that were born in the sun's core millions of years ago, struggling to reach the surface, only to fly free across the cosmos to warm our little blue planet. Visualize these rays of light as golden threads connecting you to the star that powers our solar system. The warmth is a cosmic embrace, a transfer of energy that drives the winds, lifts the water, grows the plants, and sustains the rhythm of your own heart. Bask in this ancient travelling light, feeling it seep into your pores, filling you with a gentle, radiating heat that anchors you to the universe, a golden reminder that you're constantly touched by the stars. As we bask in this ancient travelling light, consider the canvas upon which it paints its masterpiece, the endless azure dome above you. We often take the blue of the sky for granted, assuming it is simply the colour of the air, just as the ocean is the colour of water. But the air is transparent, a collection of invisible gases. The blue you see is a result of a celestial game of billiards known as Rayleigh scattering. As the white light of the sun strikes the upper atmosphere, it collides with molecules of nitrogen and oxygen. These molecules are smaller than the wavelength of visible light, and they act as tiny prisms. Because blue light travels in shorter, smaller waves, it is more easily caught and scattered by these molecules, bouncing wildly in every direction, painting the entire dome in a wash of saturation. Imagine yourself floating in this sea of scattered light. You're not looking into a void. You're looking into a lit room, a sanctuary where the atmosphere itself is glowing. The sky is not a ceiling, but a deep, luminous mist of scattered sapphire light that wraps around the planet. If the Earth had no atmosphere, the sky would be black as ink, even at high noon, with the sun staring down like a harsh spotlight. Instead, we are swaddled in this soft blue diffusion, a visual lullaby that calms the mind and signals to our primal brain that the day is bright and we are sheltered beneath a blanket of air. As the day matures and the sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, the physics of light shift, transforming the sky into a kaleidoscope of fire. The sun is now shining through a much thicker slice of the atmosphere to reach your eyes. The light must travel a longer path, slicing sideways through the air rather than coming straight down. This extended journey filters out the scattered blue light almost entirely, leaving behind the longer, more resilient wavelengths of red, orange, and gold to survive the passage. Visualize the atmosphere acting as a grand, spherical lens, bending and filtering the light until the sky resembles a spilled forge of molten copper and rose. This transition is not just a change in colour, it is a change in mood. The intense, energizing blue fades into the warm, sedative tones of the golden hour. Imagine this warm light touching the tops of the trees, gilding the edges of clouds, and casting long, soothing shadows that stretch out like sleepy fingers across the grass. It is the universe dimming the lights, preparing the biological rhythms of every living thing for rest. The brilliant reds you see are the survivors of a long journey, a testament to endurance, painting the closing act of the day in colours that warm the soul even as the air begins to cool. While your eyes are captivated by the sunset in the west, a more subtle, mystical phenomenon is occurring directly behind you in the east. If you were to turn your gaze away from the setting sun, you would see a band of pinkish-purple light hugging the horizon, separated from the darkening sky above by a strip of deep blue. This is the belt of Venus, a beautiful atmospheric boundary that marks the edge of the day. Below this pink band, you will notice a darker slate blue segment rising from the ground. This dark band is the shadow of the Earth itself. You're witnessing the planet casting its own shadow onto the atmosphere, a projection of our world's curve rising into the sky as the sun dips lower. It is a moment of profound planetary perspective. Picture yourself standing on the surface of this great sphere, watching its shadow climb the eastern sky, chasing the light away. It is a gentle reminder of the scale of the world you inhabit, a silent, daily eclipse where the Earth asserts its presence against the fading light. The belt of Venus is the twilight wedge, the soft transition zone between the illuminated day and the approaching mystery of the night, a velvet curtain being slowly drawn across the stage of the world. As the belt of Venus fades and true night establishes its reign, a new celestial influencer takes the stage. The moon rises, a pale guardian in the star-dusted void. But the moon is not merely a lantern, it is a magnet. We often speak of the weather of the air, but there is also a weather of the water, driven by the invisible gravitational hands of the moon. As it arcs across the sky, it pulls at the oceans, creating the tides. Visualize the entire global ocean as a single, fluid skin covering the Earth. As the moon passes overhead, it drags a bulge of water with it, a massive silent wave that travels around the planet. This is the heartbeat of the world. Stand in your mind's eye on a quiet beach under the moonlight. Watch the water slowly creep up the sand, inch by inch, in a rhythm that matches the slow, deep inhalation of a sleeping giant. Then, hours later, watch it recede, an exhalation that reveals the secrets of the seabed. This is not chaotic water, it is disciplined, rhythmic, and predictable. It serves as a reminder that we are connected to the cosmos by invisible threads of gravity. The water in your own body, the fluids that sustain you, are part of this same hydro system, subtly attuned to the silent silver pull of the moon. In the rare and perfect stillness of a moonlit night, if there is a gentle rain falling or a mist rising from a waterfall, you might witness a phantom of the day, the moonbow. While we are accustomed to the vibrant multicoloured arches created by the sun, the moon can also craft rainbows. However, the light of the moon is merely reflected sunlight, dimmed and softened, so the bow it creates is faint, ghostly, and ethereal. To the naked eye, a moonbow often appears as a tragic, beautiful arc of pure white, a bridge of pearl stretching across the darkness. This is because the light is too faint to trigger the colour receptors in our eyes, so we see it with our rods, which detect only light and shadow. But the colours are there, hiding in the white, visible only to the camera or the keenest observer. Picture this pearlescent arch glowing softly against the starry background, a whisper of a rainbow. It feels like a secret shared between the night and the rain, a delicate, fragile phenomenon that demands darkness and silence to exist. It invites you to look closer, to find beauty in the subtle and the dim, proving that the night holds wonders just as complex as the day, only quieter. High above the moonbows and the clouds, in the upper levels of the atmosphere where the air is thin and cold, flows a mighty invisible river known as the jet stream. Imagine a serpent of wind, miles wide and thousands of miles long, slithering around the globe at speeds of over 200 miles per hour. This is the highway of the sky, a powerful current that steers the storms and guides the weather systems below. Pilots ride this current to save fuel and time, surfing the edge of the stratosphere. Visualize yourself floating at this great height, looking down at the slow rotation of the cloud decks below. You're in the slipstream of the planet, caught in a band of air that creates a boundary between the cold air of the poles and the warm air of the tropics. The jet stream is the conductor of the atmospheric orchestra, moving the instruments of weather into place. It undulates like a ribbon, dipping south to bring winter chills or arching north to allow summer heat to expand. It is a reminder of the interconnectedness of the globe. A breeze you feel on your face today may have been guided by this high-altitude river that flowed over a continent on the other side of the world just days ago. Sometimes, the air travelling over mountains creates a disturbance that results in one of the most mesmerising formations in the sky, the lenticular cloud. Unlike the drifting cumulus or the wispy cirrus, lenticular clouds appear to be completely motionless, hovering like giant polished saucers or smooth white lenses over the peaks of mountains. But this stillness is an illusion. The wind is actually blowing through them at high speed. Visualize a river flowing over a submerged stone. The water creates a standing wave that remains in the same spot while the water rushes through it. Lenticular clouds are standing waves of air. As moist air is forced up and over a mountain, it cools and condenses at the crest of the wave, forming the cloud, and then warms and evaporates as it descends, making the cloud disappear on the other side. The result is a cloud that is constantly reforming itself in the exact same space. A sculpture made of wind and moisture that looks like a spaceship anchored to the peak. Picture the smoothness of its edges, the way it glows with iridescent colours near the sun, a symbol of stability amidst the rushing flow, a perfect balance of movement and stillness. As the night deepens and the temperature plummets on the surface, the moisture in the air decides to skip the liquid phase entirely. On the glass of your window pane, a silent artist begins to work. This is the formation of frost, specifically fern frost. Water vapour, touching the freezing glass, transforms directly from a gas into a solid crystal, a process called deposition. But it does not freeze randomly. It follows the secret geometry of water, branching out in fractal patterns that mimic the leaves of ferns or the feathers of birds. Watch in your mind as these crystal gardens grow across the glass inch by inch, interlocking in perfect icy harmony. There is no sound to this creation, only the slow, creeping beauty of ice claiming the surface. Each pattern is influenced by microscopic imperfections in the glass and the slightest currents of air, creating a unique masterpiece that will vanish with the morning sun. It is a temporary gallery of ice, a reminder that nature seeks order and beauty even in the coldest, harshest conditions. Visualize the delicate white lace of the frost filtering the moonlight, turning the window into a glowing crystalline screen that separates the warmth of your sanctuary from the chill of the night. In the deepest cold, when the air is still and the sky is clear, the atmosphere can produce a phenomenon of sparkling clarity known as diamond dust. Unlike snow, which falls from clouds, diamond dust forms near the ground in clear air. The humidity crystallizes into tiny hexagonal ice prisms that float and drift like microscopic jewels. Because they are so small and light, they hang suspended, drifting slowly. When the sunlight or moonlight hits them, they sparkle like glitter thrown into the air, creating a shimmering veil around you. Imagine walking through this glittering fog. The air is crisp and biting, but the visual spectacle is one of pure magic. Each tiny crystal acts as a mirror and a prism, reflecting light, and sometimes creating light pillars, vertical columns of light that appear to extend upward from streetlights, or the moon, like beams from a celestial searchlight. It is a weather of purity and clarity, where the air itself becomes a jewel, transforming a bleak, frozen landscape into a glittering palace of light. Far to the north, where the magnetic field of the Earth curves inward to meet the poles, the ultimate atmospheric light show begins, the aurora borealis. This is not weather in the traditional sense of wind and rain, it is space weather. The sun constantly sends out a stream of charged particles known as the solar wind. When this wind strikes the Earth's magnetic shield, it is funneled down toward the polar regions. As these particles crash into the gases of our upper atmosphere, they excite the atoms, causing them to glow. Oxygen gives off a ghostly alien green. Nitrogen can produce deep purples and reds. Visualize these curtains of light hanging in the night sky, waving and undulating as if blown by a silent cosmic breeze. They are celestial drapery, folding and unfolding, brightening and fading in a rhythm that feels almost intelligent. To stand beneath an aurora is to stand beneath the visible shield of our planet, watching the energy of the sun be transformed into art. The silence of the display is profound, immense ribbons of light moving across the stars without a sound, a majestic, hypnotic dance that connects the burning heart of the sun to the frozen silence of the Arctic night. From the silent, shifting curtains of the aurora, let your gaze drift downward, settling upon the ancient, frozen landscape that sits beneath the lights. Here, amidst the glaciers and the ice sheets, lies a colour so deep and pure it seems to belong to another world. This is the phenomenon of glacial blue. While snow is white because it is filled with air bubbles that scatter all light equally, glacier ice tells a different story of time and pressure. Over thousands of years, the weight of accumulating snow compresses the layers beneath, squeezing out the air bubbles and forcing the ice crystals to interlock into a dense, solid mass. Visualize yourself standing before a towering wall of this ancient ice. It glows with an internal sapphire luminescence, a blue that feels heavy and resonant. This colour appears because the dense ice absorbs the red and yellow wavelengths of sunlight, allowing only the energetic blue light to escape and reach your eyes. You're looking at captured time, at water that froze before civilization began, holding a hue that speaks of stillness and immense density. Imagine reaching out to touch this wall. It is smooth, glass-like, and profoundly cold. A Occasionally a faint crack or pop echoes through the silence, the sound of the ice adjusting its weight, a slow geological sigh. This blue is not merely a reflection, it is the visual signature of patience, a reminder that under enough pressure, even the most fragile snowflake can transform into a gemstone of unyielding strength. As we leave the frozen poles behind, we allow our spirits to drift on the global currents, travelling thousands of miles toward the equator, where the sun reigns supreme. The landscape changes from white to gold, and the air begins to shimmer with heat. Here, in the heart of the great deserts, the atmosphere plays tricks on the eye, creating the mesmerizing illusion known as a mirage. This is not a hallucination, but a bending of physics. As the sun beats down on the sand or the asphalt, the ground becomes scorching hot, heating the layer of air directly above it. This hot air is less dense than the cooler air sitting just a few feet higher. When light from the blue sky travels down toward the ground, it hits this layer of hot air and is refracted or bent upward, curving back toward your eye before it ever touches the earth. What you see is a patch of blue on the ground, a reflection of the sky that your brain interprets as a pool of water. Visualize walking toward this shimmering oasis. It is always just out of reach, retreating as you advance, a phantom lake made entirely of light and heat. It is a phenomenon of displacement, a marriage of the sky and the soil. Let yourself be mesmerized by the wavering, dancing quality of the horizon, where the boundaries between solid ground and liquid air blur, reminding you that reality is often a matter of perspective, shaped by the temperature of the moment. In this same landscape of heat and stillness, the air sometimes decides to dance. You might see a small, swirling column of dust rising lazily from the desert floor, spinning like a spinning top released by a giant's hand. This is a dust devil, a playful, ephemeral relative of the tornado. Unlike its destructive cousins born from violent storms, the dust devil is born from sunshine and calm. When a patch of ground becomes hotter than its surroundings, the air rises quickly, punching a hole in the cooler air above. As it rushes upward, it begins to rotate, picking up grains of sand and dust to make its shape visible. Picture this golden spiral twisting gently across the dunes, moving with a wandering, aimless grace. It makes a soft, rushing sound, a whisper of wind in a silent land. It is a chimney of heat, a way for the earth to release its pent-up energy into the sky. Visualize yourself watching one of these spirits of the wind from a safe distance. It spins, grows tall, leans into the breeze, and then, as quickly as it formed, it dissolves back into the air, dropping its cargo of sand, leaving the desert floor smooth and undisturbed once more. It is a fleeting performance of aerodynamics, a brief moment of structure in the chaos of the heat. From the dry golden dust, our journey takes us to the tropical coastlines, where the land waits with bated breath for the greatest rhythmic event in the atmospheric calendar, the monsoon. The monsoon is not a storm, but a seasonal wind shift, a majestic inhalation and exhalation of the continent itself. For months the land heats up, drawing in the cool, moisture-laden air from the ocean. Visualize the sky turning a deep, bruising indigo as the heavy clouds roll in, wall after wall, laden with the weight of the sea. The air grows thick and humid, charged with the promise of relief. And then it begins. The rain of the monsoon is not a drizzle. It is a deluge, a vertical river connecting the heavens to the earth. Imagine the sound, a constant roaring drumming that drowns out all other noise, wrapping the world in a cocoon of white noise. The parched earth drinks greedily, turning from dusty brown to vibrant emerald green almost overnight. Life explodes from the soil in a celebration of water. Picture yourself sitting on a porch, protected and dry, watching this curtain of water fall. It is the washing away of the old season, a distinct marker of time that governs the lives of millions, a powerful, life-giving cycle that turns the wheel of the year with the force of 1 billion raindrops. Sometimes, however, the rain begins its journey but never completes it. In the vast dry expanses of the American West or the high plains, you may look up to see wisps of rain falling from a cloud base, streaking downward like the tentacles of a jellyfish, but fading into nothingness before they touch the ground. This phenomenon is known as virga. It is a ghost rain, a visual whisper. As the raindrops fall from the cloud, they enter a layer of warm, dry air. The dryness is so intense that the water evaporates mid-air, returning to vapor before it can wet the soil. Visually, it creates beautiful, feathery streaks that hang in the sky, often backlit by the sun in shades of grey, lavender, and gold. It looks like an artist has dragged a dry brush downwards across the canvas of the sky. Imagine floating amongst these evaporating drops. You are witnessing a cycle of water that is contained entirely within the atmosphere, a loop that skips the Earth. It is a reminder that not all journeys must reach a destination to be beautiful. Some are meant to exist only in the space between, dissolving into the air to rise and fall again another day. As the storm clouds that produce the virga begin to decay and the energy of the atmosphere shifts, you might witness one of the most surreal and distinct textures the sky can offer: mammatus clouds. Unlike the familiar fluffy tops of cumulus clouds which are formed by rising air, mammatus are formed by sinking air. They hang from the underside of a storm anvil like heavy smooth pouches, resembling a sky filled with giant inverted bubbles. Picture a ceiling of these clouds at sunset. Because of their rounded, bulbous shape, they catch the low-angle light in spectacular ways. The undersides glow with ominous bruised purples, fiery oranges, and deep golds, while the shadows between the pouches create a dramatic high-contrast relief. It looks as though the sky has been padded with soft, luminous cotton. Despite their sometimes threatening appearance, often associated with severe weather, they usually signal that the worst of the storm has passed. They are the heavy, settling aftermath. Visualize yourself lying on your back, looking up at this quilt of clouds. They seem heavy, as if they are sagging under the weight of the sky. A sculptural masterpiece of fluid dynamics that turns the atmosphere into a textured, three-dimensional landscape. In the crisp, cold air of winter, when the sun is low on the horizon, and the skies are pale, icy blue, the geometry of ice crystals once again creates a spectacle of light. You might look toward the sun and see not one, but three brilliant lights. To the left and right of the true sun, hovering on a halo of light, sit two mock suns. These are sundogs, or parhelia. They are the loyal guardians of the sun, flanking it in the sky. These spots of light are created by millions of flat hexagonal ice crystals drifting in the air, acting like tiny floating prisms. As the sunlight passes through them, it is bent by exactly 22 degrees, focusing the light into these bright patches. Often, the side of the sundog facing the sun is red, fading to orange and then blue on the outside, creating a mini rainbow that doesn't arc but stands still. Imagine the stillness of a frozen afternoon, your breath visible in the air, watching this trinity of light. It feels ancient and significant, a celestial alignment that has been etched into the sky by the simple, perfect laws of optics. It is a sign of cold stability, a quiet decoration placed upon the winter sky to amplify the meagre light of the season. As the sun, flanked by its dogs, finally touches the horizon line over a clear, flat ocean, a rare and elusive phenomenon waits for the patient observer. Most of us watch the sunset for the reds and oranges, but the very last frequency of light to say goodbye is green. This is the green flash. As the sun dips below the curve of the Earth, the atmosphere acts as a prism separating the colours of the solar disk. The red and orange wavelengths disappear first, blocked by the Earth. The blue and violet wavelengths are scattered by the thick atmosphere. For a split second, the only colour that makes it through the eye of the needle is a brilliant electric emerald green. It appears as a sudden spark or a flash at the very top of the melting sun, right before it vanishes completely. Visualize yourself staring at the sharp line of the horizon, the water calm and dark, You wait, breathing slowly as the sun sinks, deeper, deeper, and then blink. A tiny, vibrant gem of green light pulses for a fraction of a second. It is a wink from the cosmos, a reward for patience, a fleeting proof that the sun is not just a ball of fire, but a source of the entire spectrum of colour, saving its most surprising hue for the very end. Long after the sun has set and the green flash has faded, when the sky is deep black and the stars are out, you might think the time for clouds has passed. But in the deep twilight of high summer, at latitudes far north or south, a ghostly glow can appear on the edge of space. These are noctilucent clouds, the night-shining clouds. They are the highest clouds in Earth's atmosphere, floating 50 miles up in the mesosphere, on the very edge of outer space. These are not made of ordinary water vapour from the oceans. They are formed from ice crystals clinging to meteor dust, the smoke of burning shooting stars. Because they are so incredibly high, they can still catch the sunlight from over the curve of the Earth long after the ground has been in darkness for hours. They glow with a haunting electric blue-white luminescence, appearing as delicate rippled waves against the black starfield. Visualize these glowing filaments, woven from space dust and ice, shining in the dark. They look like a bioluminescent ocean inverted in the sky, a silent glowing boundary where the atmosphere dissolves into the void. To see them is to see the edge of our bubble, a luminous reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the infinite. This brings us to the realization of what the atmosphere truly is. We often think of the sky as empty space, but let us visualize it now as a physical object, a heavy, comforting blanket wrapped around the planet. This is the greenhouse effect, often misunderstood, but in its natural state, it is the very embrace of life. Without this blanket of gases, water vapour, carbon dioxide, methane, our world would be a frozen rock, swinging through the dark at 0 degrees. Imagine the sun's warmth coming in during the day, soaking into the rocks, the oceans, and your skin. As the night falls, the Earth tries to exhale this heat back into space, but the atmosphere catches it. Like a down comforter on a cold winter night, the molecules absorb the heat and radiate it back down to us. Feel this invisible warmth. It is a constant, gentle recycling of energy that keeps the rivers flowing and the plants growing. We are nestled inside a layer of insulation that is perfectly calibrated to sustain us. Visualize the atmosphere not as a void, but as a cozy, transparent shell, holding the precious heat close, protecting us from the absolute zero of the cosmos, a planetary hug that has lasted for billions of years. Held within this atmospheric embrace, the summer nights can become thick and heavy, charged with a silent, brooding energy. You sit on a porch in the velvet darkness, the air warm against your skin, watching the horizon. Without a sound, the clouds in the distance ignite. This is the phenomenon often called heat lightning. It is a misnomer, a piece of folklore that suggests the heat itself is turning into light. In reality, you're witnessing a storm so distant, perhaps hundreds of miles away, that the sound of the thunder has dissipated long before it reaches you. The sound waves are absorbed by the dense, humid air and the curvature of the earth, leaving only the light to travel across the miles. Visualize the soft orange flickering within the clouds, like a lamp malfunctioning in a distant room. It is a silent storm, a ghost of a tempest that belongs to someone else far away. There is a profound sense of safety in this. You're witnessing the raw power of nature, the immense voltage, the chaotic energy, but it has been muted and silenced by distance, turned into a harmless light show for your evening contemplation. The flashes reveal the towering architecture of the cumulonimbus clouds for a split second, huge white cathedrals lit from within, before plunging them back into the anonymity of the night. It is a reminder that turmoil can exist without disturbing your peace, appearing only as a soft, rhythmic pulsing on the edge of your world. As the silent storm fades and the sun begins to rise again, the atmosphere prepares a display of divine geometry. The clouds break apart, and through the gaps, thick, clearly defined shafts of light pierce the air, angling down toward the ground. These are crepuscular rays, often called God rays or Jacob's ladder. This phenomenon turns the air into a visible substance. You're not seeing the light itself, but rather the light illuminating millions of suspended dust motes, water droplets, and aerosols drifting in the sky. Imagine standing in a cathedral or a dense forest, where the light streams through a high window or the canopy of leaves. The air looks tangible, like a golden mist that you could reach out and hold. These columns of light appear to radiate outward from a central point, fanning out like a fan. But this is an illusion of perspective. The rays are actually parallel to one another, immense pillars of energy travelling straight from the sun. Your eyes perceive them as converging in the distance, just as railroad tracks seem to meet at the horizon. Visualize walking through one of these beams. You're stepping into a spotlight of pure energy, a corridor of warmth that highlights the dancing dust of the world, connecting the dark, heavy earth to the bright, weightless sky. Before the sun climbs too high, or perhaps after it's set and the rays have vanished, the world enters a brief, magical interlude known to photographers and dreamers as the blue hour. This is not the black of night, nor the colour riot of sunset. It is a specific window of time during twilight when the sun is between 4 and 8 degrees below the horizon. The indirect sunlight is blue heavy, and it casts a deep monochromatic wash over the entire landscape. During this time, there are no shadows, only soft, diffuse tones. The contrast of the world is lowered. The jarring edges of reality are softened. Visualize a city street or a quiet harbour during the blue hour. The artificial lights, the warm yellow of street lamps, the red of tail lights, begin to glow, creating a stunning contrast against the deep, rich indigo of the air. It is a time of suspension, a pause between the acts of the day and the night. The birds have quieted, but the crickets have not yet begun. The world feels submerged in cool, clear water. It is a visual silence, a saturation of colour that soothes the eyes and signals the brain to slow down, to prepare for the rest that comes with true darkness. In certain deep valleys or sheltered basins, as the earth cools under this blue twilight, the atmosphere can behave in a way that flips the normal rules upside down. Usually the air gets colder as you go higher, but on calm, clear nights, the ground loses heat rapidly, chilling the air immediately touching it. This heavy, cold air sinks and settles near the ground, while a layer of warmer air moves over the top of it, acting as a lid. This is a temperature inversion. Imagine the valley as a ceramic bowl. The cold air fills the bowl, trapped by the warm blanket above. This stratification creates a unique acoustic environment. Sound waves, which normally disperse upward, are refracted back down by the warm layer, travelling incredible distances along the ground. If you are standing in this cold, trapped air, you might hear the conversation of hikers miles away, or the whistle of a train from the next town over, as clear as if they were beside you. Smoke from a chimney does not rise indefinitely. It ascends, hits the invisible ceiling of warm air, and then flattens out, drifting horizontally like a flowing river. It is a quiet, stratified world where the atmosphere holds everything close: sound, smoke, and chill, wrapping the land in a tight, intimate embrace. Often, this bowl of cold, trapped air fills with moisture, creating the sublime phenomenon of valley fog. If you were to hike up the side of a mountain before dawn, breaking through the inversion layer, you would look down not upon a valley, but upon a white, motionless sea. The fog fills the contours of the land perfectly, a liquid brightness that hides the forests and towns below. The tops of smaller hills poke through the white surface like islands in an ocean of milk. Above you, the sky's clear and blue, the sun warm on your face, but below, the world is asleep under a thick cotton duvet. Visualize the stillness of this white ocean. It does not crash or roar, it drifts with a slow, hypnotic lethargy. As the sun rises higher, the heat begins to eat away at the edges of the fog, causing it to swirl and evaporate, revealing the world beneath piece by piece, a church steeple here, a grove of trees there. It is a game of reveal, a slow unveiling of the day. To be inside the fog is to be in a cloud that has decided to rest. To be above it is to stand on the shore of a temporary phantom sea. While valley fog settles over the land, a different, more ghostly vapour can form over the water. Imagine standing on the shore of a large lake or an Arctic harbour on a bitterly cold morning. The water, retaining the heat of the previous season, or the depth of the earth, is much warmer than the freezing air above it. As the water evaporates, the vapour instantly condenses in the frigid air, creating wisps of steam that rise and twist from the surface. This is sea smoke, or steam fog. It looks as though the water is boiling, though it is cold. These wisps of mist do not sit still. They dance. They spiral upward like white flames, disappearing as they mix with the drier air above. The effect is hauntingly beautiful, turning a dark, flat body of water into a cauldron of brewing mist. If you were in a small boat gliding through this, you would be moving through a waist-high cloud, the water visible below you, the sky clear above, but your body wrapped in the breath of the lake. It is the visible transfer of heat, the water giving up its warmth to the hungry air, a silent, sacrificial offering that clothes the morning in mystery. Far away from the cold lakes, in the heat of the equator, lies a region of the ocean where the wind simply stops. This is the intertropical convergence zone, known historically by sailors as the doldrums. Here, the trade winds from the northern and southern hemispheres meet and neutralize each other. The air, instead of blowing across the sea, is heated by the intense sun and rises straight up. For a sailor in the age of canvas, this was a place of terrifying beauty and frustration. Visualize an ocean that is perfectly flat, a mirror of polished glass stretching to the horizon in every direction. The sails hang limp and useless. The water reflects the clouds with such perfect fidelity that it becomes difficult to tell where the sea ends and the sky begins. You're floating in a sphere of blue. The silence is absolute, broken only by the creak of the ship or the splash of a fish. While it was a peril for travellers, for us, it is a symbol of the ultimate pause. It is the centre of the world's breath, the point between the inhale and the exhale. Imagine drifting here, with no force pushing you, no current pulling you, simply existing in the suspension of the deep, warm blue, waiting for the atmosphere to decide its next move. Eventually, the air that rose at the equator must descend, and when it does, it flows back toward the centre, creating the most consistent and reliable winds on Earth, the trade winds. For centuries, these breezes have been the invisible highways of civilization, guiding ships across the vast Atlantic and Pacific with a gentle, steady hand. Picture yourself on a tropical island. The air here is not stagnant. It is alive with a constant, gentle flow. The palm fronds rattle softly, a ceaseless natural percussion. The clouds overhead are puffy and white, marching in an orderly line across the blue, driven by this steady push. The trade winds are not gusty or angry. They are persistent and nurturing. They bring the cool air over the ocean to moderate the heat of the tropics. Feel this breeze on your face. It is a touch that has travelled thousands of miles, a global circulation that connects continents. It is the feeling of momentum, of being gently guided in the right direction, a force that requires no effort from you, only that you raise your sail and let yourself be carried. Sometimes, in the flow of these winds, layers of air move at different speeds, sliding past one another like tectonic plates in the sky. When a fast-moving layer of air glides over a slower, denser layer below, it can create a churning ripple at the boundary, forming one of the most artistic and rare formations in the sky. Kelvin Helmholtz clouds. These look exactly like breaking ocean waves frozen in the sky. Visualize a perfect curling surfer's wave, but made of white vapour, repeated in a uniform row across the blue. They look like the brushstrokes of a master painter, swirls of white suspended in the moment of crashing. They are fleeting. The air mixes quickly and the waves dissolve, usually vanishing within a minute or two. To see them is to catch the atmosphere off guard, revealing the fluid dynamics that usually remain invisible. It is a reminder that the air is a fluid, just like water, crashing and curling in invisible tides above our heads. Picture these white crests rolling silently over the horizon, a surf that breaks on no shore, dissolving back into the peaceful stream of the wind. Above the clouds, above the winds, and even above the storms, a secret electrical phenomenon dances on the edge of space. For decades, pilots reported seeing strange red flashes above thunderstorms, but they were dismissed as optical illusions. We now know they are real. They are called red sprites. While lightning strikes down toward the Earth, sprites fire upward from the top of the storm cloud into the mesosphere. They are not jagged bolts, but soft, luminous plumes of red plasma. They look like giant spectral jellyfish, with trailing red tentacles and purple crowns, hovering miles high in the night sky. They last for only a few milliseconds, faster than the blink of an eye, a ghost in the machine of the weather. Visualize this hidden layer of the storm, while the ground shakes with thunder and rain, high above in the silence of the upper atmosphere. These silent crimson flowers are blooming and vanishing in the dark. It is a secret conversation between the storm and the stars, a discharge of energy that reaches for the void rather than the ground, painting the edge of space with the colours of a neon dream. As we drift downward from the realm of the sprites, back toward the surface where the water waits, we encounter the journey of the rain that has finished falling. It does not simply sit on the surface, it vanishes, embarking on a dark subterranean voyage. This is the world of groundwater and aquifers. Imagine the raindrops slipping between the grains of sand and soil, filtering down through the roots of the grass, moving deeper into the darkness of the Earth's crust. It enters the pores of the rock, a vast hidden sponge beneath our feet. This is a slow, silent river that flows not through open air, but through stone. Some of the water you drink today fell as rain thousands of years ago, filtering through the geology of the planet, purified by the very Earth itself. Visualize this hidden ocean, resting in the cool, dark silence of the rock, waiting patiently. It is the Earth's savings account of moisture, a resource held in the dark to sustain life in the light. It reminds us that there is movement even in stillness, and that the ground beneath us is not dead rock, but a living filter, holding the ancient rains in a cool, rocky embrace. From this subterranean sanctuary where the water sleeps in the rock, we follow the hidden fissures and hollows into the great breathing lungs of the underground, the cavern. You might imagine caves as stagnant, airless places, but they are actually engaged in a constant rhythmic respiration with the world above. This is the phenomenon of barometric cave breathing. Just as your chest rises and falls, the Earth inhales and exhales in response to the changing weight of the atmosphere. When the air pressure on the surface drops, perhaps due to an approaching storm, the higher pressure air inside the cave rushes out to equalize the balance, creating a steady, cool wind at the cave's mouth. Conversely, when the pressure outside rises, the cave inhales, drawing fresh air deep into its limestone throat. Visualize yourself standing at the entrance of such a cavern on a hot afternoon. You feel a sustained, refreshing breeze blowing from the darkness, a breath from the deep earth that remains at a constant cool temperature year-round. It is a stable, ancient air, untouched by the seasons, moving in a slow, geological rhythm. It reminds us that the Earth is not a solid, dead rock, but a porous, breathing entity, constantly exchanging energy and air with the sky, connected by invisible gradients of pressure. Deep within these stone lungs, the water that filtered through the rock encounters a new force, the heat of the planet's core. In certain rare and magical places like Iceland or Yellowstone, this meeting of fire and water creates the explosive rhythm of the geyser. Imagine the water trickling down until it touches superheated rocks, boiling not at the surface but miles underground. The pressure builds in the dark, a kettle whistling in the deep, until the weight of the water above can no longer hold back the steam. The release is a spectacular pillar of white water and mist shooting toward the sky, a thermal exhale. But consider the water itself. It has spent centuries underground, absorbing silica and minerals, only to be launched into the sunlight for a few glorious seconds before falling back as rain. Visualize the steam drifting away in the wind, carrying the scent of sulfur and wet stone. It is a violent act of physics, yes, but also one of profound release. The Earth is venting its stress, releasing its excess energy in a display of power that is as rhythmic as a heartbeat. Watch the plume rise, hang suspended in the air like a white ghost, and then dissolve, leaving the ground wet and steaming, waiting for the cycle to begin again. Where the geothermal heat is gentler, it does not explode, but rather invites us to rest. We drift now to the edge of a natural hot spring, a pool of turquoise water cradled by snow-covered rocks. The air is freezing, biting at your cheeks, but the water is a steaming embrace of warmth. This is nature's own bath, heated by the magma miles below. The contrast is the essence of the experience. Visualize stepping into this pool. The heat seeps into your muscles, untying the knots of the cold, while the steam rises around you, creating a private, foggy enclosure. The water is heavy with dissolved minerals, calcium, lithium, magnesium, elements that the water stripped from the rocks on its journey. As you float there, weightless and warm, you are bathing in the blood of the earth, soaking in a primordial soup that heals and relaxes. The steam freezes on your eyelashes and hair, turning you into a winter spirit, while your body remains safe in the warmth. It is a sanctuary where the fire of the core meets the ice of the surface, and you exist comfortably in the balance between them, held by the buoyant, mineral-rich water. Leaving the volcanic springs, we travel to the vast green oceans of the temperate and tropical forests to witness a silent, invisible fountain. We often think of rain falling down, but in the forest, the rain also rises. This is transpiration. Every leaf on every tree is a tiny pore, a mouth that releases moisture into the air. A single large oak tree can exhale over 40,000 gallons of water into the atmosphere in a year. Visualize the forest not just as wood and leaves, but as a massive living pump. The roots drink from the groundwater we explored earlier, pulling it up through the trunk against the force of gravity and releasing it as vapor through the canopy. This rising mist gathers above the treetops, forming soft, ragged clouds that cling to the forested hills. This is why rainforests create their own weather. They do not just wait for the rain, they summon it. Imagine walking under this green canopy. The air is cool and humid, rich with oxygen. You're walking inside the breath of the trees. It is a slow, silent hydraulic engine, lifting the ocean of the underground into the sky, molecule by molecule, creating a localized atmosphere of life and moisture that sustains everything around it. In the highest reaches of these forests, where the mountains brush the bottom of the sky, the weather creates a unique ecosystem known as the cloud forest. Here, the air is constantly saturated with mist. It does not rain in the traditional sense. Rather, the clouds simply walk through the trees. The vegetation here has adapted to drink directly from the air. Picture the gnarled branches of ancient trees, entirely wrapped in thick blankets of emerald moss, bromeliads, and orchids. They do not need to root in the soil. They sip the moisture from the passing fog. The silence here is profound, dampened by the thick layers of moss that cover every surface like green velvet. The line between earth and sky is erased. You're walking in a terrestrial coral reef, where the water is a swirling white mist. Every droplet that condenses on a leaf and drips to the forest floor is a note in a slow, dripping symphony. Visualize the moisture beading on a fern frond, growing heavy, and finally falling, plip, into the moss below. It is a world of eternal hydration, soft edges, and muted sounds. a place where the Earth is constantly drinking from the clouds. When the clouds finally release their burden as true rain, they create a soundscape that is universally recognized as one of the most relaxing noises on Earth. This is not just a cultural preference, it is a neurological fact. The sound of steady rain is a form of pink noise. Unlike white noise, which has equal energy per frequency, pink noise decreases in intensity as the frequency increases. This balance matches the frequency spectrum of human brainwaves during deep sleep. It is a chaotic yet consistent sound, a wall of acoustic texture that masks jarring noises, a car door slamming, a dog barking, burying them in a blanket of soft static. Visualize the rain falling on a variety of surfaces, the deep hollow drumming on a wooden roof, the sharp tinny patter on a metal sheet, the soft whispering hiss on the leaves of a tree. It creates a cocoon of sound, a protective barrier that signals to your primal brain that predators are sheltering and the world is quiet. The rain grants you permission to do nothing. It washes the day clean, not just physically but sonically, creating a rhythmic lullaby that has sung humanity to sleep for millennia. After the storm has passed and the rain has ceased, you step outside and inhale deeply. There is a distinct, sharp, almost metallic scent in the air, different from the earthy smell of petrichor. This is the scent of ozone. During the storm, the immense voltage of lightning bolts ripped apart nitrogen and oxygen molecules in the atmosphere. Some of these oxygen atoms recombined into groups of 3, forming O3, or ozone. The word comes from the Greek ozene, meaning to smell. You're smelling the aftermath of high-energy physics. The wind from the storm's downdraft carries this gas from the upper atmosphere down to the surface. It smells clean, like a spark, like chlorine or fresh linen, a scent that implies sterilization and purity. Visualize the atmosphere having been scrubbed clean. The dust, the pollen, and the stagnant air have been washed away or zap-burned by the lightning, leaving behind this crisp, energized air. It is the breath of a new beginning. When you inhale that sharp sweetness, you are tasting the residual energy of the storm, a chemical signal that the turbulence is over and the air has been reset. High in the mountains, after the storm clears, the interaction of sunlight and mist can create a rare and somewhat startling optical illusion known as the Brocken spectre. If you stand on a ridge with the sun directly behind you and a bank of mist or clouds below you, your shadow can be cast onto the water droplets. But because of the perspective and the distance, your shadow does not look like a flat silhouette on the ground. It appears as a gigantic, elongated figure standing in the air, looming within the clouds. Often, the water droplets diffract the light around the head of the shadow, creating a rainbow-coloured halo or glory that encircles the spectre like a saintly aura. Visualize seeing this ghostly giant mimicking your every move in the mist. It is simply you, projected onto the atmosphere, but the effect is supernatural. It feels as though the mountains are holding up a mirror, showing you your own presence magnified against the sky. It is a moment of ego and awe, a silent confrontation with your own shadow, suspended in the white void of the clouds, crowned by a ring of spectral light. As the sun begins to set in these high altitudes, the mountains prepare for a final display of colour known as alpenglow. This phenomenon occurs when the sun is just below the horizon. The direct light has vanished from the valleys, which are already plunging into twilight blue. But the mountain peaks, standing tall and proud, are high enough to catch the indirect red-shifted light reflecting off moisture and dust in the atmosphere. The snow-covered summits suddenly ignite with a soft burning shade of rose, pink and violet. It looks as though the mountains are glowing from within, holding on to the memory of the sun. The rock and ice, usually so cold and grey, are transformed into warm, luminous embers. Visualize this transition. The world below is dark and cool, but the peaks above are bathed in this ethereal, dying light. It is a fugitive beauty, lasting only for a few minutes. It is the mountain's final salute to the day, a lingering kiss of light that paints the harshest landscapes in the softest, most romantic colours imaginable, before the blue shadow finally climbs the peak and claims the world for the night. With the mountains now dark and the sun fully gone, the canopy of the universe opens up above. The stars appear, piercing the blackness. But look closely. They are not steady points of light. They are dancing. They twinkle and shimmer in a phenomenon called scintillation. This is not a property of the stars themselves, which burn steadily in the void. It is a story told by the air you are breathing. As the starlight travels through the Earth's atmosphere to reach your eye, it passes through layers of air with different temperatures and densities. These pockets of air act like weak lenses, bending the light beams slightly this way and that, thousands of times a second. The light is focused and unfocused, brightening and dimming, shifting position ever so slightly. Visualize the atmosphere as a turbulent ocean of air, and the starlight as a message struggling to get through the waves. The twinkling is the visual signature of the wind and the heat high above your head. Planets, which are closer and appear as disks rather than points, do not twinkle as much. Their light is too broad to be disrupted. But the stars, those distant suns, wink at you through the veil of the world. It is a reminder that you are looking at the universe from the bottom of a deep, fluid ocean of air, and every shimmer is a testament to the living, moving atmosphere that protects you. As you gaze upward through this turbulent ocean of air, watching the stars dance in the currents of the atmosphere, your eyes may find the steady, glowing anchor of the moon. Sometimes, on a night when the air is cold and high, cirrus clouds are veiling the sky, the moon appears to be encircled by a perfect luminous ring. This is the 22-degree halo. It is a sign that you're looking through a veil of ice. Floating miles above your head are millions of hexagonal ice crystals, shaped like tiny pencils or flat plates. They are drifting horizontally, aligned by the gentle resistance of the air. When the moonlight enters one side of these hexagonal crystals, it is bent by exactly 22 degrees before exiting. Because the crystals are randomly oriented but consistent in their geometry, this bending of light creates a perfect circle of pearl-white light around the lunar disk. Visualize this ring as a celestial eye looking down upon the sleeping world. The inside of the ring is dark, while the halo itself glows with a soft, ghostly intensity, sometimes showing faint tinges of red on the inner edge. Folklore tells us that a ring around the moon means rain is coming soon, and often this is true. The high cirrus clouds are the forerunners of a larger storm system, but for now, in this moment of stillness, it is simply a display of cosmic geometry, a reminder that even in the chaos of the atmosphere, nature adheres to precise, mathematical laws of beauty, drawing circles of light in the dark canvas of the night. On nights when the air is even colder and the ice crystals hang lower in the atmosphere, the light does not just form rings, it builds cities. Drifting down from the moonlit halo, we find ourselves in a frozen landscape where vertical columns of light appear to erupt from the ground, reaching endlessly upward. These are light pillars. They are not physical beams like searchlights, but optical reflections from millions of flat, plate-like ice crystals floating parallel to the ground. Imagine these crystals acting as tiny floating mirrors. They reflect the light from street lamps, car headlights, or the moon itself, smearing the point of light into a tall, glowing column. Walking through a town on such a night feels like walking through a forest of light. The pillars can be white, amber, or red, depending on the source, creating a silent, shimmering aurora that is tethered to the earth. The air in these moments is usually breathless and still, the cold biting at your skin, but the visual spectacle warms the spirit. It transforms the mundane lights of civilization into a spiritual architecture, turning a street lamp into a cathedral spire of photon energy. Visualize yourself moving through this silent, glowing corridor, where the air itself seems to be crystallizing into light, blurring the boundary between the earth and the sky in a vertical celebration of the cold. As we move away from the lights of the town and toward the solitude of a frozen wilderness, the silence of the winter night is broken not by the wind, but by the water itself. Stand on the shore of a vast frozen lake under the starlight. The ice is thick, a solid sheet of black glass covering the sleeping water. But as the temperature fluctuates, the ice expands and contracts, creating tension that must be released. When the ice cracks, it does not just crumble, it sings. This is the acoustic dispersion of sound in ice. A crack propagates through the ice sheet, and the high-frequency sound waves travel faster than the low-frequency ones. To your ear, standing on the shore, this reaches you as a descending futuristic chirp, often described as a laser blaster sound, or a deep resonant twang that echoes across the miles. Pew pew, whoom. It is a sound that seems synthetic, alien, and utterly unexpected in the natural world. Visualize the sound waves racing through the dark ice, vibrating the frozen surface like the skin of a drum. It is the lake talking in its sleep, a song of stress and release that resonates through the heavy, cold air. Listening to this singing ice is a deeply grounding experience. It reminds you of the immense forces at play even in stillness, the tension of the cold creating a symphony that only the night watchman can hear. On the snow-covered plains surrounding the singing lake, the wind begins to play a game with the landscape. In very specific conditions where the snow is moist and sticky but the ground beneath is icy and smooth, the wind can sculpt the snow into one of nature's rarest formations, snow rollers. These are not snowballs made by children, but by the atmosphere itself. The wind catches a small chunk of snow and flips it over. If the wind is just strong enough, not too violent to shatter it, but not too weak to leave it be, it begins to roll the snow along the ground. Layer after layer of snow is gathered up, much like rolling a rug. As it grows, the centre often collapses or blows out, leaving a perfect hollow donut or a cylinder of snow standing in the field. Picture a meadow at dawn, littered with these white spiral sculptures. They sit motionless, trailing long tracks behind them that show their winding journey across the field. They're fragile, crumbling at the slightest touch, transient monuments to the perfect balance of friction, adhesion, and wind speed. Visualize the invisible hand of the wind gently rolling these bundles across the white expanse, a silent, playful act of creation that leaves the landscape decorated with wheels of snow, waiting for the sun to melt them back into the earth. Where the wind is fiercer and the moisture is heavy, the snow does not roll, it builds. We travel now to the high exposed ridges of the mountains, where the trees stand like sentinels against the storm. Here, we witness the formation of rime ice. Unlike the delicate frost on your window, rime ice is aggressive and directional. It forms when supercooled water droplets in the fog slam into an object and freeze instantly upon contact. Because the wind is driving these droplets, the ice grows into long, jagged feathers or spikes that point directly into the wind. It creates a frozen record of the storm's direction. Imagine a lone pine tree on a mountain peak. It is no longer green. It has been encased in a thick white armour of ice. The needles are gone, replaced by heavy white flags of rime that can grow several feet long. The texture is rough, milky, and opaque, trapping air bubbles inside. It looks like the world has been dipped in white plaster. To stand amidst these rime-encrusted trees is to stand in a garden of statues, a ghostly monochrome world where the wind has solidified into a physical form. The silence here is heavy, muffled by the layers of ice, a white room where the trees are sleeping in a cryogenic embrace, waiting for the thaw. But the thaw can come with startling violent speed. Descending from the frozen peaks to the foothills, we encounter the snow eater, known in North America as the Chinook wind, or in Europe as the Föhn. This is a dramatic example of how air changes as it moves. Moist winds from the ocean are forced up over the mountains, dropping their rain and snow on the peaks. As the air descends the other side, it is dry and compresses rapidly. Physics dictates that as air compresses, it heats up, This dry, warm wind roars down the slopes, raising the temperature by 20, 30, or even 40 degrees in a matter of hours. Visualize standing in a snowy field wearing a heavy coat. Suddenly a wind roars like a freight train, but it is not cold. It is warm. The snow around you does not melt into puddles. It vanishes. It sublimates, turning directly from solid ice into vapor, devoured by the thirsty, dry air. The transformation is magical. The white blanket retreats before your eyes, revealing the brown grass beneath. A distinct Chinook arch, a flat line of clouds, hangs over the mountains to the west, marking the boundary of the warm air. It is a moment of confused seasons, a blast of spring in the dead of winter, a warm breath from the mountains that liberates the land from the grip of the ice. As the seasons shift and the atmosphere becomes more volatile, the sky can take on textures that seem to belong to the ocean. Look up now and witness the undulating, chaotic beauty of Asperita's clouds. These are a relatively new discovery in the meteorological world, officially named only recently. They look like the surface of a stormy sea viewed from underwater. The cloud base is not flat, but roughened into chaotic waves, sharp peaks, and smooth valleys that seem to writhe and churn. The lighting is often dramatic, with thick, dark folds of cloud illuminated by low sunlight, creating a high-contrast relief map of the sky. It looks apocalyptic, as if the sky is about to fall, yet Asperita's clouds are often silent and produce no rain. They are simply a display of turbulence and instability trapped between layers of the atmosphere. Visualize yourself lying on the grass looking up at this inverted ocean. The waves of grey and blue roll silently above you. It is a mesmerizing fluid motion, a heavy velvet curtain being shaken by a giant hand. The texture is so rich you feel you could reach up and run your fingers through the furrows of the clouds. It is a reminder of the fluid nature of the air we breathe, a heavy rolling liquid that covers the world in a blanket of turbulent beauty. In the southern hemisphere, specifically in the remote Gulf of Carpentaria in Australia, the atmosphere creates a structure so orderly it defies belief. This is the morning glory cloud. Unlike the chaotic Asperitas, the morning glory is a perfect solitary tube of cloud that can stretch for 600 miles, rolling across the sky like a white rolling pin. It is a solitary wave, a rare atmospheric event where a wave of air travels without changing shape. The cloud rotates backward as it moves forward, tumbling over itself at speeds of up to 40 miles per hour. Imagine standing on a flat red dirt plain in the early morning. The air is dead calm. Then, on the horizon, a low white wall appears. As it approaches, you see it as a perfect cylinder, smooth and endless. Glider pilots travel from all over the world to surf this cloud, riding the rising air current just in front of the wave. Visualize the sensation of flight, soaring silently along the face of this endless white cliff. The air in front of the cloud is going up, and the air behind it is sinking, creating a precise, rolling engine. It is a majestic, lonely traveller, a singular event that arrives with the morning light, sweeping the sky clean before dissolving into the heat of the day. From the rolling waves of the day, we sail into the electric mysteries of the night sea. For centuries, sailors watching their masts during storms would witness a supernatural sight, a blue or violet glow dancing at the very tip of the wood. They called it St. Elmo's fire. This is not fire, it is plasma. It is a coronal discharge, occurring when the electrical field in the atmosphere is so strong, usually during a thunderstorm, that it tears the electrons off the air molecules, causing them to glow. It attaches itself to pointed objects, ship masts, airplane wings, lightning rods, even the horns of cattle. It often emits a faint hissing or buzzing sound, like bacon frying or the hum of a high-voltage line. Visualize being on the deck of a ship in the pitch black of a storm. Above you, the mast is crowned with a ghostly dancing blue flame that consumes nothing. It is cool to the touch, a cold fire. It is a sign that the air is charged, that the tension between the earth and the cloud is reaching a breaking point. Yet, it is often seen as a good omen, a protective light in the darkness. Imagine the blue light flickering like a candle in the wind, a visible manifestation of the static electricity that permeates the world, painting the tips of our human creations with the raw energy of the sky. Finally, we move from the periphery of the storm to its terrifying, peaceful heart. We enter the eye of the hurricane. A hurricane is a massive engine of chaos, a spinning vortex of wind and rain spanning hundreds of miles. But at its absolute centre lies a circle of profound, baffling stillness. This is the stadium effect. As the centrifugal force flings the clouds outward, air from the stratosphere sinks down into the centre, drying out the moisture and clearing the sky. Imagine surviving the roaring wall of the eye wall, the wind screaming, the rain blinding. And then, suddenly, silence. The wind drops to a gentle breeze. The clouds break and you see the blue sky or the stars above. You're standing at the bottom of a bowl of clouds. All around you, rising 10 miles into the air, is a vertical wall of white spinning violently. But where you are, it is peaceful. Birds are often trapped here, circling in the calm air. The sun shines warm on your face. It is a sanctuary inside the destruction, a physical paradox. Visualize this cylinder of silence moving across the ocean. To be in the eye is to be in the center of the mandala, a place of temporary absolute clarity surrounded by the greatest fury nature can conjure. It is the ultimate atmospheric contrast, a reminder that at the center of every wheel, no matter how fast it spins, there is a point that remains perfectly still. Leaving the surreal sanctuary of the hurricane's eye, where the stillness acts as a counterweight to the fury, we drift upward and away, seeking a gentler disruption in the cloudscape. Imagine looking up at a flat, uniform blanket of high altocumulus clouds, a vast grey quilt stitched across the sky. Suddenly your eye catches a flaw in the fabric. There is a perfect circular hole punched through the cloud deck, revealing the stark blue of the upper atmosphere or the stars beyond. In the centre of this void hangs a wispy, fibrous streak of white, dangling like a jellyfish tentacle. This is a full streak hole, sometimes known as a sky punch. It is a phenomenon of sudden, cascading freezing. The water droplets in the cloud deck are supercooled. They are below freezing temperature but remain liquid because they lack a seed, a tiny particle to freeze onto. All it takes is a single disruption, perhaps a passing airplane or a sudden drift of wind, to trigger the change. One drop freezes, and in a chain reaction, the surrounding drops instantly crystallize into heavy ice. These ice crystals are too heavy to stay afloat, so they fall, leaving behind a circular gap, a window opening in the ceiling of the world. Visualize the silent drama of this event, a perfect circle widening in slow motion, the ice crystals falling in a central streak that evaporates before it hits the ground. It looks like a portal has been opened to another dimension, a breach in the grey wall that invites you to look deeper into the blue infinite. As we gaze through this portal into the upper atmosphere, the angle of the sun shifts, climbing higher into the sky. If the sun reaches a specific height, at least 58 degrees above the horizon, and the sky is filled with those same flat hexagonal ice crystals we met before, a splash of pure, vibrant colour may appear. But this is not the arching bow of rain. It is a straight, flat band of fire. This is a circumhorizontal arc, often poetically called a fire rainbow. Despite the name, there is no fire and there is no rain. It is a halo of ice. The light enters the vertical side face of the ice crystal and exits through the bottom horizontal face. This specific geometry acts as a perfect prism, separating the light into its spectral colours with a purity and saturation that often exceeds a normal rainbow. Picture this band of colours drifting lazily among the wispy cirrus clouds. It looks like a brushstroke of neon paint, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, smeared horizontally across the sky. Because it requires the sun to be so high, it is a phenomenon of the summer months, a decoration for the warm days. Visualize yourself lying in a summer meadow, watching this flat river of colour floating parallel to the horizon, a burning smile that does not curve but simply rests in the air, defiant of the typical arch, a rare and flat ribbon of light. Climbing even higher, far above the weather we understand, into the dry and frozen layer of the stratosphere, we encounter clouds that belong to the twilight. These are nacreous clouds, or polar stratospheric clouds. They exist at altitudes of 15 miles or more, where the air is usually too dry for clouds to form. But in the extreme cold of the polar winter, tiny crystals of ice and nitric acid begin to nucleate. Because they are so high, they remain illuminated by the sun long after the ground has fallen into deep night. They glow with an otherworldly iridescence shimmering with the colours of a seashell's interior, pearly pinks, soft lilacs, electric blues, and milky greens. This is why they are called mother-of-pearl clouds. Imagine standing in the dark Arctic winter, the landscape black and silent, but looking up to see these glowing, oil-slick clouds painted across the stars. They do not look like water vapour. They look like thin sheets of coloured plastic or waves of glowing plasma. They are beautiful, but they are also a warning. Their chemical surface encourages reactions that deplete the ozone. Yet, visually, they are the crown jewels of the atmosphere. A pastel light show that occurs on the very edge of space, reminding us that beauty exists even in the harshest, coldest vacuums. From the silent stratosphere, we descend back into the heavy, muffled comfort of a winter storm on the surface. You're walking through a heavy snowfall, the large flakes piling up on your shoulders. The world is silent, dampened by the snow. Suddenly a soft, muffled boom rolls across the sky. It is not the sharp, cracking whip-crack of a summer storm, but a low, resonant thud, like a heavy book dropped on a carpet in the room upstairs. This is thunder snow. It is a rare paradox where a thunderstorm occurs within a snowstorm. The acoustics of the event are entirely transformed by the falling snow. The millions of snowflakes act as acoustic baffles, absorbing the high-frequency sound waves of the thunder, suppressing the sharp crack and leaving only the low-frequency rumble. The lightning, too, is different. Instead of a jagged bolt clearly seen against a dark sky, the flash is scattered by the white snow, causing the entire sky to glow with a diffuse, violet-white light for a split second. Visualize this cozy containment. You're inside a snow globe that is being lit from within. The sound does not travel far. It feels intimate, a secret storm happening just for you, wrapped in layers of white wool that soften the anger of the thunder into a gentle rolling vibration. In this same winter landscape, the texture of the precipitation shifts. The large, intricate flakes stop falling, replaced by something that bounces. These are not the hard, clear stones of hail, nor the wet slush of sleet. They are small, opaque white pellets that look and feel like tiny balls of styrofoam. This is graupel, sometimes called soft hail or snow pellets. Graupel forms when supercooled water droplets in a cloud freeze onto a falling snowflake, coating it in a layer of rime ice until the original crystal shape is lost, replaced by a round, lumpy nugget. Imagine holding a handful of this precipitation. It is soft and crushable, unlike ice. When it falls, it makes a distinct sound, a soft hiss, tap, as it strikes your jacket or the dry leaves. It is a sensory delight, a dry, tactile form of snow that rolls and tumbles. Visualize a landscape covered in these millions of tiny white bearings, a texture that feels almost manufactured, like beanbag filler scattered by the clouds. It represents a gentle middle ground between the fluid rain and the rigid ice, a soft, tumbling reminder of the complex layering processes happening within the cloud above. While graupel falls locally, vast, invisible rivers are flowing globally overhead. We often think of rivers as being carved into the earth, but the largest rivers on the planet are actually in the sky. These are atmospheric rivers, long, narrow corridors of concentrated moisture transport. A single one of these ribbons of vapour can carry more water than the Amazon River. yet it is completely invisible to the naked eye. They flow about a mile above the ocean, stretching for thousands of miles, connecting the tropics to the temperate zones. The famous Pineapple Express is one such river, carrying the warm moisture of Hawaii to the coast of California. Visualize this massive conveyor belt of vapor streaming over your head. It is a flying ocean, a ribbon of potential rain that snakes its way around the globe. It is the mechanism by which the tropics share their warmth and water with the rest of the world. Imagine yourself floating in this stream, weightless in the humid current, travelling thousands of miles in days, part of a global hydration system that ensures the continents do not dry out. It is a testament to the fluid connectivity of our planet, where the water of the south becomes the rain of the north. But how long does this journey take? Let us contemplate the concept of residence time. When a drop of water evaporates from the ocean and rises into the sky, it does not stay there forever. On average, a water molecule spends about 9 days floating in the atmosphere before it falls back to Earth as rain or snow. 9 days. Visualize the life of that drop. For over a week, it is a traveller of the winds. It might see the sunset over the Pacific, drift through the star-filled night over the Andes, or freeze into a crystal over the Arctic, all in a single excursion. It is a period of absolute freedom, released from the gravity of the sea and the soil. This 9-day cycle is the heartbeat of the water cycle. It is short enough to keep the water fresh and moving, but long enough to transport it across oceans. Imagine the water in your glass right now. It has likely spent countless 9-day vacations in the sky, floating as a cloud, seeing the world from above before returning to the tap. It is a comforting thought that water is a seasoned traveller and the atmosphere is its transit lounge, a place of temporary suspension between the earth and the sea. When the water finally returns to Earth as rain and the sun breaks through, we look for the rainbow. We've spoken of the colours, but look now at the space between the colours. If you're lucky enough to see a double rainbow, a primary bow and a fainter secondary bow outside it, look at the strip of sky separating them. You will notice that this band of sky is significantly darker than the rest of the sky. This dark region is known as Alexander's Band, named after the Greek sage who first described it. It occurs because of the way the raindrops reflect the light. The raindrops direct light into the primary rainbow and outward into the secondary rainbow, but very little light is scattered into the region between them. It is a shadow of optics, a zone of unlight. Visualize this dark ribbon arching over the world. It frames the primary rainbow, making the colours appear even brighter by contrast. It is a majestic, negative space, a void created by the geometry of reflection. It reminds us that for every light there is a shadow, and even in the atmosphere, beauty is defined by the contrast between the illuminated and the dark. As the sun sets and the rainbows fade, the moon rises. But look closely at the moon when it is merely a thin crescent. You can see the bright sliver lit by the sun, but you can also see the rest of the moon's face glowing faintly in a ghostly grey light. This is Earthshine. It is poetically known as the old moon in the new moon's arms. This faint glow is not sunlight hitting the moon directly. It is sunlight reflecting off the Earth, travelling to the moon, and bouncing back to your eyes. You are seeing the reflection of your own planet. The brightness of Earthshine depends on the weather of Earth. If the side of Earth facing the moon is covered in bright white clouds or snow, the Earthshine is brighter. If it is covered in dark oceans, it is dimmer. Visualize this cosmic mirror. You're looking at a reflection of Earth's weather cast onto the lunar surface. It is a ghostly image of our home, a nightlight kept on by the clouds and the ice, proving that our planet glows in the dark, beaming its weather report across the vacuum of space. Finally, we pull back further, floating in the silent void, to witness the ultimate boundary that defines all weather, the Terminator. This is not a machine, but the moving line that separates day from night. It is the circle of twilight that sweeps around the globe at 1,000 miles per hour. stand in the Terminator line. To your east is the night, deep and blue, filled with sleeping cities and cooling air. To your west is the day, bright and warm, filled with activity and rising currents. You're standing in the eternal sunset. If you could fly fast enough to stay in this line, you would live in a perpetual state of golden hour, forever watching the sun kiss the horizon. The weather changes drastically across this line. The cooling air of the dark side creates breezes that rush toward the warm side. Visualize this grey, soft line sliding silently over mountains, oceans and deserts, blending the sharp contrast of light and dark into a gradient of peace. It is the global eyelid, closing for sleep on one side and opening for wakefulness on the other, a constant moving wave of transition that ensures no storm, no heat, and no cold lasts forever. As this global eyelid opens and closes, regulating the rhythm of days and nights, we might expect the temperature to follow perfectly in step. We assume that on the longest day of the year, the summer solstice, the heat would be at its peak, and on the shortest day, the winter solstice, the cold would be at its deepest. But the atmosphere and the oceans possess a quality known as thermal inertia, creating the phenomenon of seasonal lag. The Earth is not a piece of paper that heats instantly under a lamp. It is a massive, water-heavy sphere that holds onto its temperature like a deep, cast-iron pot. Visualize a pot of water placed on a stove. When you turn the burner to high, the water does not boil instantly. It takes time to absorb the energy. Similarly, in June, the sun is highest, but the oceans are still shaking off the chill of winter. They absorb the heat slowly, storing it in their vast blue depths. It is not until July or August that the water and the land finally release this stored warmth back into the air, creating the true peak of summer heat. Conversely, in December, the land is still radiating the last warmth of autumn, delaying the true bite of winter until January or February. This lag is the memory of the planet. It tells us that the weather is not just a reaction to the sun of today, but a cumulative echo of the sun from weeks ago. It is a slow, heavy system that refuses to be rushed, teaching us that true change, whether warming or cooling, takes time to manifest. As the seasons slowly shift, the land itself begins to breathe in a daily rhythm, independent of the ocean. In the great mountain ranges of the world, this breath is known as anabatic and katabatic winds. These are the respiratory cycles of the valleys. During the day, the sun heats the slopes of the mountains. The air touching the rock warms up and becomes lighter, floating upward along the valley walls. This is the anabatic wind, the inhalation. Visualize yourself standing in a high alpine meadow at noon. You feel a gentle breeze drifting uphill, carrying the scent of pine and wildflowers from the valley floor up to the peaks. It is an uplifting current, one that eagles and hawks ride effortlessly to gain height without flapping a wing. But as the sun sets and the Terminator line crosses the peaks, the mountain exhales. The ground cools rapidly, chilling the air. This heavy, cold air slides down the slopes like a silent river of gravity pooling in the valley bottom. This is the katabatic wind, the exhalation. If you were camping in the valley, you would feel this cool draft settling around your tent at twilight, a nightly blessing of fresh, crisp air delivered from the summits. It is a predictable, rhythmic exchange, a sign that the mountains are alive, inhaling the warmth of the day and exhaling the cool of the night in a perpetual cycle of balance. Carried on these mountain breezes is a sound that is so specific and soothing that the Greeks gave it a name, Cytherism. This is the sound of wind whispering through the leaves of trees, but to the attentive ear, this is not just white noise, it is a complex language. The weather speaks differently depending on the instrument it plays. Visualize a grove of aspen trees. Their leaves are attached by long, flat stems that act like pivots, causing them to quake and flutter in even the slightest breath of air. The sound is a soft, high-frequency rushing, like the sound of a distant waterfall or gentle applause. Now shift your mind to a stand of ancient pine trees. Their needles are stiff and narrow. When the wind passes through them, it creates a deep, resonant hush, a low-pitched sigh that feels ancient and mourning. The wind is the bow, and the forest is the string section. Imagine lying on the forest floor, eyes closed, listening to this arboreal orchestra. You can tell the speed of the wind and the type of the tree just by the texture of the whisper. It is the atmosphere playing the landscape, a continuous soothing melody that has been performed since the first tree rose from the earth. As the wind shakes the leaves, it may also shake loose a single drop of rain. We often picture a raindrop as a tear, pointed at the top and round at the bottom. But this is a myth born of illustration. In reality, the physics of air resistance sculpts the falling water into a shape that is far more humble and aerodynamic. A falling raindrop looks like a hamburger bun, or a tiny parachute made of liquid. Visualize the drop falling in slow motion. As it descends, the air rushes up against its bottom surface, flattening it out, while the surface tension holds the top in a rounded dome. It becomes a flying lens, a little jelly-like disc of water. If the drop gets too large, the air pushes up into the center until it creates a hollow, like a bag, eventually bursting it into smaller droplets. This means that every rain shower is a collection of millions of tiny fluctuating domes, vibrating and reshaping themselves as they fall. Picture these billions of little lenses descending from the grey sky, each one a perfect equilibrium between the cohesion of water and the resistance of air, not a tear of sadness, but a resilient shaped vessel of life. Sometimes, before the rain falls, the moisture in the rising air encounters a localized updraft that creates a gentle accessory for the clouds. You may have seen a large, puffy cumulus cloud looking like a cauliflower, and resting gently on its top is a smooth, thin cap of silk. This is a pileus cloud, also known as a scarf cloud or cap cloud. It forms when the main cloud rises so fast that it pushes a layer of moist air above it. This upper layer cools and condenses into a smooth, streamlined hood that drapes over the summit of the cumulus. It looks like a beret, or a halo, or a soft blanket placed over the head of a storm. Visualize the contrast, the bubbly, turbulent cotton of the cumulus cloud below, and the sleek, polished smoothness of the pileus above. It is a fleeting decoration, lasting only a few minutes before the main cloud pushes through it and absorbs it. It is a moment of gentleness in the violent growth of a storm, a soft accessory worn by the giants of the sky. If the angle of the sun is just right when it hits this delicate pileus cloud, or the thin edges of a high cirrus, the cloud does not just turn white, it turns into a pearl. This is cloud iridescence. Unlike the organized bands of a rainbow, iridescence is a chaotic, pastel mixing of colors, similar to the swirl of oil on water or the surface of a soap bubble. The water droplets in these clouds are incredibly small and uniform in size. When sunlight passes through them, it is diffracted, scattered, creating patches of pink, mint green, and powder blue. These colours are not bold, they are soft, metallic, and washing into one another. Visualize looking up near the sun, shielding your eyes, and seeing the edges of the clouds glowing with this mother-of-pearl luster. It looks as though the cloud has been lined with silver and opal. It is a reminder that the atmosphere is full of hidden spectrums, waiting for the right thickness of vapour to reveal the colours usually hidden in the white light. As we drift from the high, iridescent clouds down to the coastline, the air becomes heavy, cool, and grey. We enter the embrace of the marine layer. This is not just fog. It is a specific atmospheric blanket that forms over the cold ocean currents, particularly along the western coasts of continents. The air directly above the water is cooled to the dew point, creating a thick sheet of low clouds that hovers just above the waves. During the summer, the land heats up, creating a vacuum that sucks this cool grey blanket inland. Visualize living in a coastal town. The morning begins in a soft, cool gloom. The light is flat and shadowless. The sound of the ocean is muffled. It feels like the world is tucked in under a heavy duvet. As the day progresses, the sun burns off the layer, retreating back to the sea, only for it to roll back in at twilight. It serves as nature's air conditioning, a daily modulation of temperature that keeps the coast temperate and livable. Imagine standing on a cliff, watching this wall of grey roll in from the horizon, swallowing the ocean and then the beach, a slow-motion tide of vapour that brings the gift of coolness to the heated land. Far away from the damp coast, in the heart of the dry dunes, the wind engages with the earth in a way that creates music. We visit the phenomenon of singing sands. In certain rare deserts, the grains of sand are polished to a near-perfect spherical shape and contain silica. When these grains avalanche down the face of a dune, triggered by the wind or a footstep, the friction creates a low-frequency hum. It is not a rustle, it is a drone. It sounds like a low note played on a cello, or the distant hum of a prop plane, or a Tibetan singing bowl being struck. The sand is singing. The frequency depends on the size of the grains and the speed of the slide. Visualize sitting on the crest of a massive golden dune in the absolute silence of the desert. You push a wave of sand down the slope, and the earth beneath you begins to vibrate with a deep, resonant voom. It is a sonic interaction between the wind, the gravity, and the geology. It feels mysterious, as if the desert itself is vocalizing, a deep Gregorian chant rising from the dry ocean of sand. But sometimes, the interaction between the sky and the sand is not gentle. It is violent and transformative. When a bolt of lightning strikes the sandy ground, it delivers a temperature hotter than the surface of the sun in a fraction of a second. This intense heat instantly melts the silica in the sand, fusing the grains together into a hollow glass tube. This object is called a fulgurite, or fossilized lightning. These are the physical footprints of a storm. They branch out underground, mimicking the shape of the lightning bolt that created them. They are rough and sandy on the outside, but smooth and glassy on the inside. Visualize digging into the sand and finding one of these fragile root-like structures. You're holding a moment of high-voltage energy that has been frozen in stone. It is a permanent record of a split-second event. The weather, usually so transient and fleeting, has left a sculpture behind. It reminds us that the atmosphere is capable of alchemy, possessing the power to turn the crumbling dust into solid glass with a single touch of fire. Finally, we let our minds drift upward, past the lightning, past the pileous clouds, past the iridescent ice crystals, and even past the noctilucent clouds, until the air itself becomes a memory. We reach the exosphere, the Kármán line, and beyond. This is the shore of the cosmic ocean. Here, the atmosphere does not end with a hard wall, it simply unravels. The air molecules, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, are so far apart that they can travel for miles without hitting another molecule. They're no longer behaving like a gas, they're behaving like tiny independent satellites. Some of them, energized by the sun, move fast enough to break free of Earth's gravity entirely, drifting off into the black void of space. This is the planetary wind, the slow, silent leak of our atmosphere into the cosmos. Visualize this silent, lonely region. The sky here is black, even when the sun is shining. There is no weather here, no wind, no sound. There is only the silent, slow drift of atoms saying goodbye to the planet. It is a place of absolute peace, the final fading gradient where the chaotic, life-giving blanket of our world gently dissolves into the infinite stillness of the universe. From that silent, fading edge where the atmosphere dissolves into the infinite, let us turn our gaze back toward the world we left behind. Floating here in the velvet void, looking down at the curve of the earth, we witness the most profound truth of our existence, the thin blue line. From the surface, the sky seems endless, a limitless ceiling of depth and height. But from this vantage point, the illusion is shattered. You see the atmosphere for what it truly is, a terrifyingly delicate halo, a glowing veneer of gas no thicker, relative to the planet, than the skin of an apple. Visualize this glowing rim of blue light hugging the dark curve of the globe. It is a fragile bioluminescent shell, glowing against the absolute blackness of space. This thin veil is the only thing standing between the teeming life of the forests and oceans and the lethal radiation of the cosmos. It looks tender, almost liquid, a brush stroke of sapphire paint that could be wiped away with a thumb. As the sun rises behind the Earth, this line ignites, turning from deep indigo to electric turquoise to blinding white. It is a visual anchor for our vulnerability. To float here is to realize that all the storms, all the clouds, all the winds we have explored are contained within this microscopic layer of protection. A tiny bubble of breath clinging to a rock spinning in the dark. But where did this breath, and specifically the water that fills it, come from? As we drift back down through the layers, passing the silent satellites and the auroras, we must acknowledge the ancient alien origin of the rain. The water in your glass, the clouds in the sky, and the ice at the poles did not originate on Earth. It was delivered. Billions of years ago, the Earth was a dry, scorched rock. The water arrived on the backs of comets and asteroids, icy travellers from the outer reaches of the solar system that bombarded our young planet. Visualize these celestial snowballs, vast mountains of dirty ice, crashing into the primal Earth, melting upon impact and releasing their vapour into the atmosphere. Every drop of rain that falls on your face today is recycled star stuff, melted comet ice that has been circulating through the water cycle for eons. The weather is, in essence, a cosmic inheritance. When you hear the sound of rain, you're listening to the melting of ancient travellers that crossed the void to be here. Imagine the journey of those molecules, from the frozen darkness of the Kuiper Belt drifting for millions of years, to the violent impact, to the vapour rising, and finally, to the gentle, life-giving shower in a garden. We are bathing in the melted remnants of the early solar system, wrapped in a blanket woven from the ice of deep space. This global connectivity extends beyond the water. It involves the land itself taking flight. Let your mind drift now to the vast, sun-baked expanse of the Sahara Desert. It seems lifeless and still, but the wind here is a great excavator. Every year, millions of tons of dust are lifted from the ancient dried lake beds of the desert and carried high into the atmosphere. This is the Saharan air layer. Visualize a river of golden dust flowing westward across the Atlantic Ocean, a dry, hazy highway in the sky. This dust is not pollution, it is a gift. It travels thousands of miles, crossing the entire ocean, to rain down upon the Amazon rainforest. The dust is rich in phosphorus, a nutrient derived from the shells of ancient microscopic creatures that lived in the Sahara when it was a sea. The dead desert feeds the living jungle. Without this airborne fertilizer, the lush lungs of the planet would starve. Picture the dust settling on the broad green leaves of the canopy, a golden powder dissolving in the rain, entering the soil and fueling the growth of the trees. It is a planetary transfer of wealth, a reminder that the wind connects the driest place on Earth to the wettest, binding them in a cycle of mutual dependence that spans the hemisphere. Beneath this river of dust, the ocean itself is moving in a grand, slow motion that dictates the temperature of the air above it. We look down at the deep, dark blue of the Atlantic and see the global conveyor belt, specifically the Gulf Stream. This is not merely a current, it is a massive underwater river of heat. Warm, salty water from the tropics flows northward, moving more water than all the rivers of the world combined. As it reaches the colder latitudes of the North Atlantic, it surrenders its heat to the atmosphere. Visualize this transfer of energy, the ocean exhaling its warmth into the chilly air. This heat is picked up by the prevailing winds and carried toward Europe, wrapping the continent in a mild embrace. Without this current, places like London or Norway would be locked in a much deeper, harsher freeze, similar to the Arctic regions of Canada. Picture the steam rising from a warm cup of tea on a cold day. The Gulf Stream is that steam for the entire Northern Hemisphere. It is a thermal engine, a radiator pipe pumping tropical sunshine into the grey skies of the north, proving that the weather of the air is forever tethered to the slow, heavy currents of the deep sea. But the ocean does not just flow, it oscillates. It breathes in a rhythm that spans years. Shift your focus to the vast Pacific Ocean, the largest feature on the planet. Normally, the trade winds push the warm surface water toward Asia, piling it up in the west. But every few years, the winds weaken. The warm water, seemingly tired of being held back, sloshes eastward toward the Americas. This is El Niño, the child. This shift changes everything. It acts as a massive boulder dropped into the pond of the atmosphere, sending ripples of change around the globe. Deserts in Peru may flood with rain, while rainforests in Indonesia dry out and burn. The jet stream shifts its path, altering the winters of entire continents. Visualize this sloshing of the Pacific as the slow heartbeat of the planet. It is not a disaster, but a natural fluctuation, a deep oceanic sigh that rearranges the weather patterns of the world. Imagine the warm water spreading out like a golden stain across the blue map, releasing vast amounts of energy into the air, creating a fever that the atmosphere must work to dissipate through storms and winds thousands of miles away. Sometimes, the heat comes not from the ocean, but from the land itself, in a terrifyingly beautiful display of combustion. In the heart of a dry summer, when a wildfire rages through a forest, the heat is so intense that it creates its own weather system. These are flammagenitus clouds, or pyrocumulus. The fire acts like a volcano, sending a column of superheated air, smoke and moisture from the burning vegetation rocketing into the sky. As this column rises, it cools and condenses, but the cloud it forms is not white. It is a dirty, bruised grey and brown, a cloud made of water and ash. Visualize this billowing cauliflower of smoke towering over the landscape. It is a storm born of fire. Inside this cloud, the particles of ash rub together, building up static electricity until, crack, lightning shoots out from the smoke. We are witnessing a fire that is trying to create a storm, a feedback loop where the destruction on the ground builds a monument in the sky. It is a somber, awe-inspiring sight, a dark cathedral of smoke that blocks out the sun, reminding us of the immense energy stored in the trees, released all at once to punch a hole in the stable atmosphere. Just as fire on the surface can darken the sky, so too can the fire from beneath the earth. When a massive volcano erupts, it does more than spill lava. It injects millions of tons of sulfur dioxide gas into the stratosphere. This gas mixes with water vapour to form a haze of tiny sulfuric acid droplets. These droplets act like billions of tiny mirrors, reflecting the sun's light back into space before it can warm the earth. This creates a volcanic winter. The sky may appear clear, but it is dimmer, the sun's power sapped by the invisible veil. History tells of years without a summer, where snow fell in July and crops failed, all because a mountain on the other side of the world cleared its throat. But there is a haunting beauty to this veil. The sunsets following such an eruption are legendary. The light, filtering through the volcanic aerosols, turns violent shades of blood red, deep purple, and acidic orange. Visualize the sky as a canvas painted by the geology of the earth. The screaming colours are a sign of the atmosphere struggling to filter the light through the haze. It is a global dimming, a cooling fever cloth placed on the forehead of the planet, proving that the rocks below can dictate the colour and temperature of the sky above. Floating amongst these aerosols and dust particles is a secret inhabitant of the clouds, one that is not mineral, but biological. We drift now into the realm of aerobiology. Clouds are not sterile places. They are teeming with bacteria, fungal spores, and viruses. Some of these bacteria, specifically a type known as Pseudomonas syringae, have evolved a remarkable talent. They can make it rain. These bacteria produce a special protein on their outer membrane that mimics the structure of ice crystals. When they float in a supercooled cloud, they act as ultra-efficient magnets for water molecules, tricking the water into freezing around them at temperatures where it would normally stay liquid. The ice crystal grows until it becomes heavy enough to fall as rain or snow, carrying the bacteria back down to the Earth where it wants to be. Visualize the cloud not just as a weather phenomenon, but as a living ecosystem. The rain is a transport system for life. Tiny invisible passengers are piloting the snowflakes, using the weather to migrate from the sky to the plants below. It blurs the line between biology and meteorology, showing us that life does not just survive the weather. Sometimes, life creates the weather. As these living raindrops fall and the seasons turn, the air itself begins to change its perfume. We arrive at the sensory threshold of autumn. The weather of fall is not just a drop in temperature, it is a chemical cascade that results in a distinct nostalgic scent. As the days shorten and the sunlight weakens, the trees cut off the supply of nutrients to their leaves. The green chlorophyll breaks down, revealing the yellow and red pigments, carotenoids and anthocyanins, that were hiding underneath all along. But it is the smell that anchors us. The falling leaves begin to decompose, releasing volatile organic compounds. The air, now cooler and denser, holds these heavy scent molecules close to the ground. It is a crisp, woody, earthy musk, the scent of returning to the soil. Visualize walking through a deciduous forest in October. The air is sharp and clean, lacking the humidity of summer, carrying the dry, sweet perfume of decay. It is the smell of the earth preparing for sleep. This scent triggers a primal response in us, a biological signal to seek warmth, to gather, to prepare for the coming dark. It is the atmosphere fermenting the summer's growth into the rich mulch of winter. Finally, as the temperature drops below freezing, the atmospheric chemistry simplifies into a single geometric miracle, the snowflake. We have all heard that no two are alike, but let us visualize the process of their creation to understand why. A snowflake begins as a microscopic dust particle or a bacterium in a cloud. Water vapor deposits directly onto this seed, turning from gas to crystal. Because of the molecular structure of water, 1 oxygen and 2 hydrogens, the ice bonds naturally in a 6-sided hexagonal lattice. This is the seed of symmetry. As this tiny hexagon falls through the cloud, it passes through layers of air with slightly different temperatures and humidities. Each change in the environment causes the crystal to grow a new branch, a new arm, or a new plate. Since the 6 arms are all experiencing the exact same conditions at the exact same microsecond, they grow in perfect synchronization. But because every snowflake takes a slightly different path through the chaotic turbulence of the cloud, every flake writes a different history in its structure. Visualize the snowflake as a physical map of its journey. The long, fern-like arms of a dendrite tell of a journey through wet, humid air. The flat, simple plates tell of a drier, colder passage. To catch a snowflake on your glove is to catch a fallen star of ice, a transient jewel that has recorded the minute-by-minute story of the storm in its delicate, lace-like geometry. It is the ultimate order emerging from the chaos of the wind, a 6-sided promise that beauty is the default setting of the frozen world. As the snowflakes settle, locking their delicate arms together on the ground, they cease to be individuals and become a collective shield. We often think of snow as cold, a freezing blanket that suffocates the earth. But in the physics of the winter, snow is an insulator, a keeper of warmth. This is the creation of the subnivean zone. Because fresh snow is composed of up to 90% trapped air, it acts exactly like the fiberglass insulation in the walls of a house, preventing the heat of the ground from escaping into the biting air above. Visualize this hidden world beneath the white surface. While the wind howls and the air temperature plunges to 20 degrees below zero, down here, in the small gap between the soil and the bottom of the snowpack, the temperature remains at a steady, survivable 32 degrees. It is a humid, quiet, twilight kingdom. Mice, voles, and shrews move through tunnels in the grass, protected from the owl and the frost, living their entire winter in this cozy, consistent sanctuary. Imagine the silence of this space, muffled by feet of snow above, a secret room where the Earth's own body heat is trapped and held close, allowing life to endure the season not by fighting the cold, but by hiding beneath a blanket of air-filled ice. On the surface of this blanket, however, the wind is not so gentle. In the vast open expanses of the polar regions or the high prairies, the wind does not just move the snow, it sculpts it. These hard, wind-carved ridges of snow are known as sastrugi. Unlike the soft, rolling drifts we see in gardens, sastrugi are sharp, wave-like formations that look like a frozen ocean of whitecaps. The wind, carrying hard crystals of ice, acts like a sandblaster, scouring away the soft snow and leaving only the hardest, most compressed layers behind. They can be small ripples or towering ridges as high as a person. Visualize walking across this landscape. It looks like a desert of white sandstone, etched with fluid lines that trace the direction of the prevailing storm. The surface is hard enough to walk on without sinking, singing a high-pitched squeak under your boots. It is a landscape of erosion and resistance, where the air has turned the softest substance on Earth into a rugged terrain of frozen waves, fixed in time until the next gale reshapes them. In the thin, dry air of the high Andes Mountains, the sun takes over the sculpting duties from the wind, creating one of the most eerie and beautiful formations on the planet, penitentes. These are thin, tall blades of hardened snow or ice, pointing directly toward the sun, clustered together in vast fields that resemble a crowd of kneeling figures in white robes. They are formed not by melting, but by sublimation. The direct transition of snow into vapour. The intense sunlight in the high altitude focuses on slight depressions in the snow, vaporising the centre faster than the peaks, digging deep troughs while leaving the tips standing tall. Some can grow to be taller than a human. Visualise a valley filled with these thousands of silent, jagged statues, all leaning in unison, bowing to the solar path. It is a solemn, geometric garden of ice, a testament to the power of light to carve matter, creating a texture on the surface of the world that looks like it belongs on a distant alien moon. From the high peaks, we lower our gaze to the bare, frozen soil of a winter garden. Here, the ground itself seems to be sprouting. You might see bundles of fragile, clear spikes pushing up the dirt or lifting small pebbles into the air. This is needle ice. It occurs when the soil is moist and the air temperature drops below freezing, but the ground remains unfrozen. The water in the soil is drawn up to the surface by capillary action, freezing the moment it touches the cold air. But instead of forming a flat sheet, the new water is pushed up from the bottom, growing a long, thin column of ice that extrudes from the earth like a crystalline mushroom. Visualize the sound of walking on this ground. A satisfying musical crunch as these delicate pillars shatter. It is the earth trying to sweat in the cold, a microscopic geological force that churns the soil, slowly toppling stones and mixing the earth in a slow-motion, frozen plough that operates only in the stillness of the night. In the deep, damp forests, on rotting branches lying on the leaf litter, an even more magical and rare extrusion occurs. This is hair ice. Unlike the geometric needles of the soil, hair ice looks like soft, silky wool or a beard of fine white cotton candy growing from the wood. It is smooth, curved, and incredibly fragile, melting at the slightest touch of a warm finger. For over a century, this was a mystery, until it was discovered that a specific fungus living inside the wood plays the role of the architect. The fungus releases complex molecules that shape the freezing water, preventing the ice crystals from growing large and chunky, forcing them instead into hair-thin strands. Visualize this symbiotic sculpture. A fungus breathing out moisture in the freezing night, spinning a wig of ice silk that adorns the dead branch. It is a fleeting biological art form, a silver fur that exists for only a few hours after sunrise, proving that even in decay and cold, life creates structures of impossible delicacy. Leaving the forest floor, we approach the moving water of a wide, slow river as winter begins to take hold. The water does not freeze all at once like a pond. Instead, it turns into a flowing slurry known as fragile ice. The river surface loses its shine and takes on a matte, oily appearance, swirling with a greyish hue. This is a suspension of millions of tiny needle-like crystals that are forming in the turbulent, supercooled water. They do not lock together yet. They flow like a thick, heavy soup. Visualize the heavy, sluggish movement of the river. It looks like liquid lead or moving grease. The sound of the river changes, the splashing dampened by the viscosity of the slush. It is the intermediate state of matter, a river that is trying to become a solid but is kept fluid by its own momentum, a mesmerizing, swishing flow of millions of individual crystals searching for an anchor. As this fragile ice flows downstream, the turbulence gently bumps the slushy clumps into one another. Over time, this constant collision rounds off the edges, creating one of the most charming winter phenomena, pancake ice. The river becomes covered in thousands of perfect circular pads of ice, each with a raised rim around the edge created by the constant bumping. They look like white lily pads, or a cobblestone street made of ice, drifting downstream in a synchronized parade. Visualize standing on a bridge, looking down at this mosaic. The pancakes rotate slowly as they drift, fitting together in a shifting puzzle. In the ocean, these can grow to be meters wide, but in the river, they are intimate and small. It is a display of soft collisions, a chaotic system organizing itself into perfect circles through the simple act of touching, creating a texture on the water that is both ordered and fluid. Sometimes, the momentum of this ice is too great to be contained by the banks. In a phenomenon known as an ice shove, or an ice tsunami, the sheet of ice covering a lake is pushed by strong winds and currents toward the shore. It does not stop at the water's edge. With a slow, unstoppable groan, the ice surges onto the land. It creates a piling wall of white shards, climbing over beaches, crushing docks, and pressing against trees. The sound is terrifyingly beautiful. The tinkling of millions of pieces of glass breaking, mixed with a deep earthen rumble. But the movement is slow, almost hypnotic. Visualize this glacier-like crawl. It is the water reclaiming the land for a brief moment, a reminder of the sheer mass and weight of the ice. It stacks up in beautiful, jagged piles, a chaotic barricade of crystal that glitters in the sun, monuments to the kinetic energy stored in the silent frozen lake. In the midst of this freezing world, there are sometimes places where the water refuses to close. In the frozen expanse of the Arctic sea ice, vast areas of open water can appear and persist, known as polynyas. These are the lungs of the ocean. They are kept open by upwelling warm water or fierce winds that blow the new ice away as soon as it forms. Because they are oases of open water in a desert of ice, they are biological hotspots. Visualize the steam rising from the dark water into the freezing air, a phenomenon we know as sea smoke. The contrast is stark, the blinding white ice sheet surrounding a pool of ink-black water that breathes vapor into the sky. Seals, whales, and birds gather here to breathe and feed. It is a thermal vent, a localized defiance of the winter where the ocean continues to interact with the atmosphere, pumping heat and moisture into the dry polar air through a tear in the frozen fabric. This blinding white ice sheet does more than just host life. It acts as the Earth's shield against the sun. This is the albedo effect. Albedo is the Latin word for whiteness. Fresh snow and sea ice are the most reflective natural surfaces on the planet, bouncing up to 90% of the sun's energy back into space like a giant mirror. Visualize this reflection. When you stand on a snowfield on a sunny day, the light comes not just from the sky but from the ground, enveloping you in a sphere of brilliance. This is why the poles stay cold. They refuse to accept the sun's heat, sending it away. It is a self-reinforcing solitude. The white ice protects itself by remaining white. Imagine the planet from space, capped with these brilliant white shields at the top and bottom, glowing with reflected starlight, silent guardians that regulate the temperature of the entire globe by simply saying no to the heat. As the season turns and the sun climbs higher, overcoming the albedo, the great thaw begins. But the ground does not thaw from the surface down. It often thaws from the bottom up and the top down simultaneously. As the snow melts, it releases water into the soil, which may still be frozen deep down. This creates a temporary fleeting ecosystem, the vernal pool. These are pop-up ponds that exist only in the spring, filling the depressions in the forest floor with snow melt. Because they are temporary and free of fish, they are the nurseries for wood frogs and salamanders. Visualize the forest floor in April. The trees are still bare, allowing the sun to warm these shallow, clear pools. The water is incredibly still, reflecting the grey branches above. It is fossil water from the winter snow, repurposed for new life. They are the transition vessels, holding the memory of the winter's ice in liquid form just long enough to birth the spring's chorus, before evaporating back into the atmosphere to become summer clouds. As the water from these vernal pools evaporates, rising invisibly to rejoin the sky, we arrive at the final, most profound truth of our journey. We have traversed the lightning and the snow, the deserts and the oceans, but we must end with the most intimate weather of all, the breath currently entering your lungs. This is the law of atmospheric immortality. Consider the air you're breathing right now in this quiet moment. It is not new. The Earth does not create new air. It merely recycles the old. The nitrogen, oxygen, and argon atoms filling your chest are billions of years old. They have been inhaled by the ancestors of humanity, by the great whales of the ancient oceans, and by the dinosaurs that shook the ground. Every breath you take is a physical connection to history. The specific molecules you're exchanging with the room right now may have once been part of a storm over the Himalayas, or trapped in a bubble of amber, or exhaled by a poet writing by candlelight 1,000 years ago. Visualize this invisible, swirling heritage. You're not separate from the atmosphere. You're a temporary vessel for it. The weather passes through you. The storm, the calm, the frost, and the heat. They are all composed of these same indestructible particles that are now sustaining your heartbeat. You're weaving yourself into the tapestry of the planet's climate. With every exhalation, you send a part of yourself back into the great river of the wind, to travel across the sea, to become a cloud, to freeze into a snowflake, and to fall upon a mountain on the other side of the world. You are the weather. You are the wind. You are the connection point between the past and the future of the sky. The atmosphere is not something that hangs above you. It is a continuous, flowing spirit that moves through you, binding you to every living thing and every geological moment that has ever existed. You are breathing the universe, and it is breathing you. And now, the journey is complete. The cycle is closed. The winds have settled. The clouds have dispersed, and the storms have quieted into a profound, resonating silence. The sky above you is dark and clear, a velvet canopy stretching into infinity, holding the memory of all we have seen. Feel the weight of this knowledge settling upon you, not as a burden, but as a warm, heavy quilt. There is nothing left to learn tonight. There is nothing left to see. The library of the cosmos is closing its doors, turning down the lights, inviting you to rest in the sanctuary of the quiet. Your body is heavy, sinking deeper into the mattress, anchored by the gravity of a planet that loves you. Your breath is slow, joining the ancient rhythm of the tides and the seasons. Inhale and exhale. Slow, deep, ancient. Let the images of the snow and the sun fade into a soft grey mist. Let the colours dissolve. Let the sounds drift away until there is only the sound of your own peaceful existence. You are safe. You are held. You are drifting on a calm, dark ocean that has no shore. The stars are watching over you. The air is guarding you. Drift away now. Let go of the shore. Float into the deep velvet embrace of the night. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.